Here we go. Okay, so as promised, short little presentation. So thanks to the AI Masterclass, aka Town Hall, it's kind of been condensed into one just because this format worked, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone could get access to it. So that's why I switched to the universal tier. So thank you for coming. So I wanted to start with this tweet that someone shared on Discord somewhere, or that I spotted somewhere. Oh no, it was on Reddit. So I saw on like r/singularity someone quoted this tweet. So at Y Combinator class 24 kickoff today, Sam Altman suggested people build with the mindset that GPT-5 and AGI will be achieved, quote, relatively soon. Most GPT-4 limitations will get fixed in GPT-5 per the YC founder, Richard He. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And if you watched AI Explains video today, there's been a lot of flip-flopping, particularly from OpenAI and Sam Altman. Messaging has been inconsistent, to say the least, which it's been kind of inconsistent for a while, so I'm not going to, belabor the point. But I just thought that this was a really interesting thing. Obviously, it came from Twitter, it came from Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I think that it's safe to say that GPT-5 is coming this year, AGI is coming this year, or something along those lines. We're certainly going to make progress towards it. There's also Bill Gates. I know that he can be controversial, but he started a new podcast called Unconfuse Me with Bill Gates, which I was honestly thinking, if billionaires want to manage their reputation more, why don't they just all do podcasts? So here we are. Bill Gates has a podcast now. I watched a good chunk of this one with Sam Altman, and Bill Gates has even kind of reversed course. Before he said, "Oh well." We're near the peak of what can be done with transformers and blah blah blah. And in the course of this podcast, he's like, I've been surprised what you can achieve with just Chat GPT. And now we're talking multimodality and GPT-5 and everything else. So it seems like, all the big tech players are full steam ahead. They're all very bullish on this. I did also want to share because one of the questions that I get a lot is, how does OpenAI and Microsoft and Google and Meta all stack up? And because Google has been in the cloud data center space for longer than all of them, with the exception of Microsoft, because Microsoft has Azure, but Google has their TPUs, and their TPU account is like 4 or 5 times ahead of where even Microsoft and OpenAI are. But this chart is for NVIDIA. So you see who's really winning? NVIDIA is winning. I kind of wish that I had invested in NVIDIA, and this is not financial advice, but I remember about a year ago, I started saying, because I was talking to NVIDIA at the time, and I said, man, NVIDIA doesn't know what they're sitting on. They're sitting on a freaking gold mine. And this was almost exactly a year ago, a little bit more actually. And I was like, they don't know what's coming, and because I was talking to the engineering, and then when I talked to the sales team, they knew what was coming. The sales and marketing folks, they knew what was coming down the pipeline, and so yeah, that has panned out. So I should have invested in Nvidia, but live and learn. And so before we get to the rest of the conversation in the QA, which I see there's 4 questions up there now, good. For anyone who just jumped in, the way that you use the QA is there's a little system tray. If you're on desktop, it should be at the bottom. If you're on mobile, I think there's like you hit the little hamburger icon and you can get the QA, but it looks just like the chat logo, except it's 2 chat icons. Anyways, you can ask questions there, but also please make sure you're looking at the other questions that have been asked, and you either add comments or upvote the ones that you want answered. So that's how I prioritize it, because especially last time by the end there was like 15 questions and I couldn't get to them all. So make sure you upvote and comment and add questions accordingly. But yeah, so AI Masterclass, really what I'm going to focus on is kind of talking about where I see things right now, just based on all the conversations I'm having, all the news that I'm reading, and that sort of thing. Because there has been a kind of a watershed movement or a sea change has happened in the last, since the last town hall. So current prediction, just yes, I am holding firm on AGI soon, almost certainly this year, if not 2025 at the absolute latest. I'm still saying by September 2024, we will have a definitive yes or no that AGI exists. Now, there's I'm not going to give the exact source, and I know that this is being nebulous, but put it this way: some people have messaged me screenshots that are very interesting. Some of which suggest that there's absolutely already AGI behind closed doors, and that various stakeholders, I'm not going to say who, again, I'm being nebulous on purpose, but that various stakeholders are paying attention and are concerned about this and also trying to keep it under wraps. Um, in terms of the fact that AGI exists, who has it, what does it mean, and more importantly, what is it capable of? And so when you look at, for instance, the drama at OpenAI, where some of the board members were literally like, it would be better to shut OpenAI down for the safety of humanity than let them continue. What did they see? So it seems like, just talking with other influencers in the space, other communicators, it does seem like it's there or we're damn close. But again, if it exists behind closed doors, they're going to titrate it. They're going to kind of, release it slowly, kind of ramp up, do a lot more safety testing, that sort of thing. Now, another prediction, though, and this has to do with more of the global perspective, because, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but like we're playing a game of economic chicken, not just with in America and in the West, because I was looking, I've got a few videos coming out that look at like the debt load that most of Europe has, and America and a bunch of other nations, and all of the like not all, but many of the like Western allies are drowning in debt, and other nations, most of Africa is not, China is not, even Russia is not drowning in debt. So it's really interesting. And so basically, kind of my read on the situation is that we're playing a game of economic chicken. It's basically who can get to AI first, because if you can get to AI first, you're going to get a technological revolution, the likes of which we've never seen. And so then we'll basically end up with the post World War II boom, where it's like there's just so much new technology, so many new possibilities that it's going to be like the good times are back. And so that's kind of why I have this like economic chicken. And the reason that geopolitical tension is paused right now is because no one has the willpower to step up, and nobody really wants a big fight right now, which is good. And my hope, if the reading the tea leaves, it seems like everyone wants to avoid conflict. Some people think that conflict is inevitable, but even some of the people that say like, "Oh yeah, war with China is inevitable," even in the last few weeks, many of them have changed course and said, well, it's possible to avoid this. So it seems like there's a path forward, a peaceful path forward. Michael, I see you raised your hand. We'll wait till I get through, and we'll do ask your question in the QA if you could. But yeah, so I see folks trying to jump in. So thank you. But the best way to jump in is to either talk in chat or ask a question in QA. Um, and then once we select the questions, I'll invite people up to talk. Um, but yeah, so the general impacts that this is all going to have, one of the key things to understand is that the economy is predicated on producing goods and services, and AI is going to help us produce more goods and services. It's going to drive down the cost of goods and services and that sort of thing. Now, the question then becomes, how do you distribute it? How do you allocate it? That sort of stuff. I've had a lot of conversations with people around that and some ideas. In fact, some of my more recent videos where I talk about decentralized economics, I've had a whole bunch of people reach out to me that are building DAOs of various kinds, talking more about tokenomics, like what can you tokenize and how, whether that's tokenizing your data. Not enough people are working on tokenizing local resources like land and stuff, but just talking about that, it seems to resonate with people. So I think that the new technology is going to create new affordances, new options for economic paradigms, but we'll see. Either way, whatever happens, it's going to be a forcing function. And so what I mean by a forcing function is that the technology is inevitable. And then just like how steamships changed, global trade and empires, and the Industrial Revolution changed agriculture, which changed everything else. AI is going to force change. It's going to force social change, political change, economic change. It's just like Thanos, it is inevitable. It's just a matter of how soon, how fast, how big, and what it looks like on the other side. And we don't really know, but we know that change is coming. And so then another point that I really want to drive home is that as I look at the landscape in terms of, Western nations democracies, and even for nations that are somewhat antagonistic to the Western world, like Russia and China. I think everyone can benefit and help find that better path forward. And it's basically like learn and teach AI. Everything that you learn, share it. Teach everything that you know about AI. Get into an AI career and advocate for AI adoption. But above all else, just solve problems and share them. Because if we all do that, like if everyone on the internet does that, then we're going to end up in a better place. And when I say like solve a problem, I don't necessarily mean a code problem or a prompting problem, a social problem, a communication problem, a business problem. Doesn't matter. Any problem that you're capable of solving, just solve that problem and give it away. That's like how I got to where I'm at. Just like give everything away that you can. And that's kind of the ethos to get us from here to there. So that's the presentation today, nice and short. So yeah, let me pop open to the QA, see what we've got. All right, lots of questions. So I see a bunch of them. There's a bunch of questions, and some of them are not upvoted. So if you guys can take a look at the questions and either add some additional comments, context, or upvote. But all right, so I see. Um, First question, Chad Phillips, and I'll get you I'll invite you up to this up to speak. But yeah, or here actually, let me just go ahead and ask get you up so we can bring you up here. All right, Chad, allowed to talk. All right. Um, if you want, you don't have to. Um,
Can you hear me all
but
right?
yeah, hey Chad. All
Hey,
right. How's it going?
it's going good, man.
All right. So what's your question?
Well, you had referred me to a consulting group to, because you're not doing that anymore. And
Uh-huh.
in just a very bottom line, that discussion, they just don't have any kind of small group consulting for small businesses. And during that
Mm.
conversation, the thought occurred to me like, this is crazy that there's like millions of small businesses across the country. Some, maybe even small percentage of people are people in my position where I'm like tech savvy. I'm seeing the storm coming. I want to be able to implement AI in ways that benefit my company, but we have small resources. I'm not a billion-dollar company. So it just occurred to me, like, wouldn't a working group for small business owners to be able to both brainstorm, share resources, and talk about what products and processes together they might be able to work to improve their businesses would be a game changer for small business owners. It would allow us to compete in some sense against these bigger companies that have much more resources to be able to do these kind of rollouts.
Yeah, so that's well my first so there's several things to unpack here. So first, great question, and I think that I can probably help with that by creating more discussion groups. But so the first thing is having talked to a bunch of people, one advantage that small businesses have is that you're going to be more nimble and more agile, so you can pivot and transform yourselves faster. So that's the strength that you have. Now, of course, the weakness is that you don't have as many resources, whether that's financial resources or headcount, in order to make those investments. But as far as like creating networks or stuff, because most of the people that connect with me on LinkedIn, many of them are founders, CEOs, many of which are small businesses. And when I was doing the consulting, most of the clients were small and medium businesses with just a very small handful of larger businesses. So I think you're right that there is an unmet need, and because of the amount of consulting that I get requested. So if I had stayed in that vein, what I would have done is to like get together all of the AI experts that I knew and just like sell off their time. And so part of the problem is that like, okay, you go on Upwork, you go on, Fiverr or whatever. Lots of people are selling AI solutions and AI consulting, but most of them are not that good. And I think that is probably the biggest problem is that when you have this new industry, it's like there's such a huge talent shortage. And this is something that I've talked about, which is why I concluded the presentation with like if you're here, if you're capable of it, learn AI, teach it, consult, do something because there is so much unmet need. And so the one of the best ways to help everyone get from here to there, whatever the future looks like, is we need more AI competency. So one of the guys that I interviewed, I think that the interview is already live on my systems thinking channel, but he said basically every business should treat AI literacy as a new core competency. Um, so it'll take time. And an interview that I had just this morning that it unfortunately won't go live for a few weeks. But one of the things that he said is rather than like DIY, like do it yourself, or DFY, do it for you. One of the key mentalities that he sees changing is do it with you. And so that's kind of like the new one of the new like mantras or whatever or new attitudes is rather than like just offloading stuff, say like, hey, I'm just gonna, flip the work to someone else entirely, do it for me, or rather, or just saying like, hey, give me the tools, I'll do it myself. It's really kind of forming more partnerships. So that's kind of the mentality of the attitude that's coming. Now that was a lot. So where like what in that makes sense? What doesn't? Where do you want to like what else do you want to cover on that topic?
Well, I guess the first thing I would add is simply that in my business, most of the resource spend and business processes we have don't need to be IP protected, and I imagine that's very true for other businesses as well, which means that small business can share resources. If somebody builds a product that helps them make a certain process, more efficient, that's not IP protected, there's no reason why they can't just share that resource with everybody else in the working group, right? That's kind of one of the multipliers I'm talking about. Then there's just the simple vetting. You're in the woods trying to figure out a problem. You've got smart people looking at you from the outside going, that's a dumb idea. Don't do
Yeah.
that, right? And so those are two of the things right off the top of my head I can think of that would be huge value multipliers. And I just think then it wouldn't feel quite so lonely, to be honest with you, either, right? Like
Hmm.
they're just walking around the world going, AI is going to change it, and everybody else is sort of this weird kind of zombie where they don't see it coming, right? So having a group of people who are not only seeing it coming, but are invested in the same kinds of like trying to solve the same kind of problems you are and keep their business running so it doesn't get run over. I just think that would be also quite, it'd be a good social group to be in as well. So there's a lot of advantages I see. It's really just trying to put together a quality group that actually is focused on getting things done, right?
Yeah.
Solving actual real business problems instead of just talking about it or worrying about it.
Yeah. So, for anyone who's not connected or doesn't follow me on LinkedIn, I have created a couple of professional networks. So maybe a small business AI adoption group could be good. But one of the key things is certainly, like you said, vetting and gatekeeping is important. And so maybe what part of the solution here is actually enabling or empowering people to create their own groups and attract those things because it's like, you know, having someone with the energy to organize something like on, meetup.com or whatever. Oh, and I'll say that Chad, I know you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but some people are closer into cities and there are a bunch of AI meetups out there
Mm.
and there's a lot of hunger for it. And when I created a local AI meetup, I had people from the local university showing up, some of the local bigger companies. I had a Google researcher show up. I even had people fly in from out of state to attend some of my
Wow.
meetings. Yeah, and so, but what I would say is like you can use meetup.com to like create miniature conferences, and especially if you're really focused on solving problems and generating value. Now, one thing that I'll point out, because like yes, I agree that there is a tremendous amount of potential there, but so many people have a scarcity mindset rather than an abundance mindset. And so this is actually something that I've talked to about on a couple of the podcast interviews that I've had that are not public yet. Um, but what I realized is that scarcity mindset is a natural state of being. And the reason is because human brains are always economizing. We're always economizing time, energy, money, every resource that you've got. And so what that means is that people default, and this is not bad. Like you might say, oh well, if you have crab mentality, that's bad. Which I used, up until like last week, I used to feel that way, but now I realize it's just human nature. It's just human nature that if you've got something working that nobody else does, or that you feel is valuable, most people until they experience it won't give it away. And so one of the primary reasons that I actually had the mentality of like, every piece of code that I figure out or every data set, I'm just going to give it away. And like I know there was a brief period of time where I kept some stuff secret, but I don't do that anymore. Was because all of the automation that I learned was because of this like Dutch guy who like was so prolific in a very particular space. And so like it was his name was Luke Deckens. And he's just a prolific coder in PowerShell. And so he was just constantly posting everything like he would solve PowerShell problems, automation problems, and I learned like literally almost everything that I knew about automation from Luke Deckens. And so like that ethos, I was like, I wouldn't be able to do my job. I would not be where I am without
Mm.
someone who just gave away everything. And so that's why I had that kind of point, like give everything away. Because, one way to think about it is the more value you add to the system, the more the net effect, the net competence of the system grows. So now
Mm.
obviously you can't force that on people. I can't force that on people, but recognizing that an economizing mindset or our natural economizing instinct leads to a scarcity mindset, but that particularly things where it's like, hey, I add value and you add value and we all add value and everyone benefits. So this is what's called value co-creation. This is another interview topic that I had. So value co-creation is basically where it's the competition is not against each other. It's not PvP, it's more like PvE. And the goal there is to generate value together and you accumulate collective value until you overcome the environmental challenges. So those are a few ideas about the mindset to share, which is one of the reasons why I do what I do. So like value co-creation, open source software. It was funny. I actually I saw someone shared like one of because they talk about me on Reddit, and someone was like frothing at the mouth saying that like Dave is anti open source software, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, so anyways, so there is an ethos that goes into this, and a mindset shift that has to go into it. And unfortunately, like Chad, like you and I and other people that are here, we're more on the rare side. But if you can articulate that abundance mindset and recognize that economizing is natural, there's nothing wrong with it, but that it does lead to that scarcity mindset. And the new game is value co-creation.
Mm.
Then you can with that messaging around, a group or an initiative or a meetup or a conference or whatever, you can probably get some more of that sharing. And so like to that end, this isn't public yet. It's not even fully planned, but I've had a few people reach out that want me to like help put on conferences. They're going to do all the work. But the first conferences are going to be like high ticket, like paid events. But depending on how it goes, we're going to try and replicate that success. But that's kind of the idea
That's
is
cool.
like you're saying, like you get like-minded people together, you put them all in a room and like you'll get new connections, that sort of thing. But there's no reason that only I can do that, right? Anyone here listening can, create a meetup event and just say, hey, this is the value co-creation AI, abundance mindset small business meetup or whatever you want to call it. So great question,
Thank you.
Chad. Yeah. Any other things or you got what you needed?
I guess the only follow up is that it seems to me like in terms of getting employees on board, it's figuring out how to have them have that moment where they realize they have superpowers on it with AI. That's what
Mm,
happened for me, anyways, right? Like it's just the moment where you realize, holy shit, my productivity just doubled by using this tool. Right. If we're talking about where people are resisting or they're in a scarcity mindset, that was the thing that got me just totally bought in. Was I just really saw my productivity skyrocket, my personal
yep.
productivity.
Yep. Yeah, no, I've asked a bunch of people that, and the number one thing is just try it. Like, and some people, what was it? The story was, oh yeah, so one of the interviews that I conducted. So this story will be a good like emblematic thing. So education, a lot of educators are like super against AI, and so the guy who's a fan of my channel, he told his wife, he's like, just try it, like prove yourself wrong. And she did, and now she won't shut up about how useful and helpful it is. And now she's advocating to all of her teacher friends.
Yep.
And so you really like you kind of just have to challenge people, like you just kind of have to dare them. Like I dare you. I dare you to try this, and then you know, once someone gets in, and like you said, once people see the value, it sells itself, and it really does sell itself. So, great
Thanks,
question.
Dave.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for jumping in. Okay, so quick reminder, for all the folks that are on, we got 60 participants. Make sure you jump in the Q&A and check all the questions and make sure you upvote a few of them, or add some comments. So let me see what's next. Look, Daniel, it looks like your question is the second one. So how is the thinking book coming along? Yeah, so I've just had 13 or 14 interviews as of this morning. A couple people backed out, but most people have followed through. Um, oh wait, hang on. Let's see. Chad, your screen is still up. I don't know if you can jump off. There we go. Here. Perfect. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, I've had a bunch of interviews, and they're all recorded. They're going through the process of editing. I've got another one. So they're going to come out every Tuesday. So that's been like a huge component. Because I got a few drafts in, and I realized that I didn't have enough stories. I didn't have enough anecdotes because I was basically just telling stories from my own career and my own experience. And I realized that that was not going to be good enough. Because it's like if someone just, like 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, someone talking about their own experience, their own story, that would have been good enough. But certainly in the last 10 to 20 years, the most transformative nonfiction books, they're hundreds and hundreds of citations, if it's that kind of book, or at least dozens of people that they talked to, in order to contribute. So I was like, okay, I need to do these interviews. And the interviews, I figured, okay, two birds, one stone. This will be good material for the book. It'll also be good just content to put out there. And some of the interviews that are coming out are amazing. And of course, I've gotten better at it as time has passed. So the first few could have been better. They're still good, just by virtue of the fact that like it's me and then another good person. But there is kind of an art to being a good host. I'm kind of emulating Lex Friedman, actually, because it's just like he has a certain way of talking and asking questions, and I tried it one interview and it worked really well. Um, so that's where I'm at. So I just started draft 6 of the systems thinking book. And but I'm also only halfway through my interviews, maybe not even quite halfway through the interviews. And now there are some patterns emerging. So I wrote an article on LinkedIn. Here, actually, let me share that with you guys since you're here. So I kind of know what the structure of the systems thinking book is going to be. Let's see, where did it go? Hang on. There we go. The five pillars of system thinking. And so what I will say is that systems thinking is not what I thought it was. This was the most interesting thing. So I just dropped the link in chat. So the most interesting thing is systems thinking is not just cognitive skills. It's not just understanding loops. It's not just understanding frameworks and that sort of thing. That's all part of it. But after talking to more than a dozen like highly successful systems thinkers, the two biggest components of systems thinking are communication and people, understanding people and their motivations and everything else around people, and also understanding that all systems are intrinsically human systems. Um, like the education system, it's people all the way down, businesses, economies, even the natural world, even agriculture and ecology and ecosystems, it's still fundamentally a human system. It's just a matter of how big of a role humans play. But in most systems, they're essentially primarily human systems. Yeah. Let's see. There are transcribed captions in English. Oh, is it real time? Interesting. So, but yeah, so it's coming along well. It certainly didn't go the direction that I thought it would. And I'm just gathering more and more anecdotes with all these interviews. So it's going to be a very solid book. My personal goal is I want it to be on Barack Obama's and Bill Gates' reading list. I don't care about New York Times bestseller. I want it to be on their reading list. And then of course then you get bestseller from that. But that's the quality and impact that I want to have with this book. And so that's why I'm putting in the work in terms of all these interviews, because it's like I literally have an interview booked pretty much every weekday from now until middle of February. Um, yeah, so that's quite a bit of work. But yeah, and also Chad just asked in chat if anyone wants to create a small business um, Discord. Now, what I also will say is that there's about 900 people on the Discord server, and we do have like the help wanted and stuff. But maybe what I can do is create a channel just explicitly for small business. Yep. Okay. Great question. So answered live. All right, let's see what's next. There's a few more questions percolating up. And also, by the way, thanks guys. I see that some of the questions are getting upvoted. So let me make sure I grab which ones are upvoted most. Okay, Simon, you've got one that's at 5. We've got um, number one, an anonymous attendee has an upvote of 9. Okay, cool. Let's see. What do you think are the steps towards utopia that we as a community can take to accelerate bringing the concepts into reality? Yeah, so I touched on this. Great question, by the way. Um, so I touched on like what are the steps that everyone can take, and so one, what a lot of you are doing already is just boosting the signal, because this is the nature of how societies work out problems, which is you have communicators like myself, like AI explained. You have people that don't agree with each other, and so some of the debates happen in public forums. But rather than me directly debating Robert Miles or Yasha Bach, right? What you have today instead is I put out my ideas and a whole bunch of people consume them. I get 1 million views a month now. And Yasha and Robert Miles and AI Explained and Andrew Ang and everyone who's in this space is all communicating and we're all reacting to each other. And so in complexity theory, you'd call this a complex adaptive system, which is like a system that is, in this case, it's an information system or a society or a culture where there's information kind of echoing around, and then I absorb information from this gigantic information bioreactor of 1 million brains. And then that changes the way that I think, and then that changes my messaging. So that's one thing that literally everyone can do. If you see a good message, share it, right? Like, subscribe, comment, because that's what the algorithm is. The algorithm is math, right? But really what the algorithms are trying to do, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, what they're trying to do is get you the information that you want or need or that you'll react to. And so your behavior online, the algorithm will pick that up and it's like, oh, that's what I want. So that's something that everyone can do. But then also, like I said, on a more like if you're ready to roll up your sleeves, then learn AI, teach AI, get an AI job, solve problems, give it away, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I see someone just added in the chat. Participation is everything. Yeah, the intelligence bioreactor. Yeah, so that's the biggest thing that everyone can participate in. And even just by being here and being part of this conversation is part of that process. Because you're here and you're paying attention and you're interacting and you're having the dialogue. So one of the key things is dialogue. And this is nothing new. This will probably never change as long as there's humans. But dialogue, and I don't mean debate, because like if you go onto Reddit and debate people, no one's going to change their mind. But if someone is game, if they are willing to have a dialogue with you, and both sides are able to operate in a space of uncertainty, what I call analytical third space, um, is like, hey, I don't really know the answer, and neither do you, but where is our position? What's the overlap? What's the disagreement and that sort of thing? And this is one of the reasons that I often will go on podcasts. I've even been on podcasts where they were a little bit, I don't want to say hostile, but they didn't really agree with me. And then like by the end they like wanted to have me back on. So I'm like, okay, sure. Because like the thing is like like if they ask gotcha questions like, well, but AI language models aren't enough. And I'm like, no, at the very least, you need cognitive architecture. So because anyways, yeah, so it's all part of the process. Um, there's other things. So There's a huge number of unsolved problems, and that I'm less certain about because, and here's what I mean by an unsolved problem, which is global peace and how do you maintain a sense of economic agency if or when AI destroys your job, right? These are unsolved problems that are going to require more collective effort, like building a startup that works in post-labor economic theory, right? Whether it's a DAO or a trust or an employee-owned co-op or whatever. And I see some people in the comments adding that they're working on that. I see that kind of stuff on LinkedIn all the time. But it's all part of the process, right? Like if you join my post labor economics group on Discord or on LinkedIn, contribute there, right? That's a great place where you can, if there's an idea that you've got, because the thing is, and this is one of the hardest things about being a communicator, is because it's like you're shouting into the void sometimes. And it's like I put out a video that gets 300,000 views, and I have no idea what impact it has, right? And I might not know for years, if ever, but almost 400,000 people have watched my post labor economics video now. So I'm like, well, it's resonating, and it's got 100,000. I don't know how many hours, but it's like 80,000 hours of watch time. So it's like, I guess it's having an impact, and people are engaging with it. So if a third of a million people have this idea in their heads now, who knows what downstream impact that's going to have? But really, it's information, right? Like that's another one of the things that I've learned from talking to systems thinkers is that communication is just about getting information from one brain to another, and then all the work that you do on that information, right? How do you discern what's accurate, what isn't, what's defensible, what isn't, what's valuable, what isn't? That's all part of the discussion, all part of the debate. Which this is one of the reasons that democracy is so noisy, by the way. And when democracy is noisy and messy, that's how you know that it's working, is because you're working through a difficult issue. It's kind of like, you take a family and you just lock them in a room and let's like talk through your issues. Not saying that we're all like on Jerry Springer, but that's kind of what democracy is. So good question. Answered live. Yep. All right. Let me scroll through, see who's next. All right. That one's got 4 upvotes. We got a 6. We got an 8, 4, 5. Okay, good. Thanks everyone for upvoting these questions. Let me see. What's this one that, okay, Simon, you're up. Simon, let me get you up on stage. Simon McClenahan. McClenahan, is that an Irish name or is that a Scottish name that you said? Allowed to talk. All right. Hey, Simon. You there?
Hey,
How's it going? What's your question?
hey. Yeah, by the way, the McClenahan is an Irish name, but as I said in the chat, I'm Australian and I
Ah.
live in Chicago right now. So, yeah, my question was that I remember the enthusiasm around agent swarms, and then OpenAI came out with GPTs, and you and as well as some other prominent YouTubers were all excited about now we can create swarms and things like that. It's just like Auto GPT and Baby AGI that started. So it seems like the enthusiasm has died down a bit. Um, do you have an explanation for that, or do you think I'm incorrect that the enthusiasm has not died down at all?
Yeah, so it all comes in waves. I having been on this for in the space GPT-2 in what 2018. Of course, I had a friend who was actually at OpenAI before the GPT craze. So I was like right on the cutting edge. So like he would send me like, "Oh yeah, look at this paper we just published." And so it all comes in waves. Funny story, when OpenAI first published, when they first created GPT-2, they were terrified that it was going to be too good and cause too much disinformation. That was GPT-2, which you don't even hear about. And then GPT-3, so new wave, within that industry. And then after a few months, we all figured out what the capabilities and limitations were of GPT-3. It got tired, it got boring. Then Chat GPT came out, so new wave, but so the joke for all of us that have been in it for a while is like the AI winters are measured in like weeks or months now rather than years. Yeah, yes, GPT-2 caused a scare within OpenAI. Um, but yeah, so like it, and talking to the team, Chad can attest to this. He's on the Ace and the Haas team. We talk about it, and it's like something new comes out, you get a new idea, and like you get like everyone is like nose to the grindstone for a few weeks, and you find another limit. And so really one of the reasons that the excitement dies down is because the models are not quite good enough yet, or because there's some infrastructure that's missing. And so what you're seeing is the natural like waves is like, okay, we got GPT-4 access, we got GPT, I guess, there's what is it? GPT-4 Turbo had some new capabilities. We've got better integrations, but then all the excitement just kind of dies down a little because it's like, oh, well, it can do all these other new things, but it can't quite do the full autonomy yet. And also, part of the reason that it doesn't work is because OpenAI deliberately hamstrings their models. They work very hard to prevent them from being fully agentic and fully autonomous. So they are fighting us. Um, and it's partly for safety. I don't know that I agree with it because, and here's why I don't agree with safety at the model level. Do you have safety on CPUs? Like, no, you have security on CPUs. You don't have the CPU try and decide what instructions to execute and which ones you don't. Um, Instead, you have safety and security at the network level, at the operating system level, at the cloud level. And so, basically that's kind of where I think that, like, if you think of LLMs as the new CPU, eventually like all of the LLMs are going to be uncensored. They're all going to be open source, especially when you see that like some of the open source models outperform the closed source ones within just a few weeks or a few months. So, anyways, kind of chasing that cat down a few rabbit holes. I hope that answers your question. Any follow-up components?
Yeah, it answers my question, but can you give me an example of specific things that the swarm, model or idea that what those limitations are that you were talking about that cause that um, uh, deceleration of interest in agent swarms?
Yeah, so on an individual basis, the limitations were of just the intelligence. The model is not quite intelligent enough to carry out individual tasks, like end to end. And then the hardest problem, far and away, is communication between agents. And so Chad can also attest to this. That language models are capable of generating a lot of messages and reading a lot of messages, but eventually it just gets so chaotic that organizing all the communication streams between agents, that's the hard part. So that's going to be partly solved by smarter models, faster models, larger context windows. But there's also a network theory and a systems, communication theory that just we don't have yet. A huge component of Chad's work was like, what communication lines do you create? Yeah, Chad just added the communication bus, the coordination problem is the primary problem. Um, because like some of the other team members who aren't in the Patreon community, they created agents months ago that are able to individually prosecute tasks end to end, recognize when they're done, recognize when they have failed, back themselves out. So on an individual basis, some task that's smart enough, but that inter-agent communication, absolutely the hardest part. Now, will that get easier, like autogen and stuff like that? I have no idea. But Professor, I had the interview with Dr. Chi Wang over at Microsoft, and they're working on it. They're finding things that work. So like one of the things that he found works is that you create a user avatar agent. So you basically create an AI agent that operates on your behalf to coordinate the swarm. So that's an idea that's coming. So that's an AI that like, hey, Swarm, like, Mr. User, what do you want? And then it'll make decisions on behalf of you. So one of the ways that it's agentic is that it has a copy of your ego in the Swarm. Very fascinating work. So we'll figure it out. I have no doubt that we'll figure it out. It's just there's always limitations that we run into, and so that's why it comes in waves.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Great question. Let me have you go ahead and hop off stage. Remove permission to talk. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's check the questions. So we've got scrolling through some 3, 5. So Anand, yours has 5 upvotes. We got one with 6. Let's see. That might be the next one that we answer. Yep, we got one with 6 upvotes. Let's see. All right. Anonymous attendee says, when you say learn AI, which books would you recommend to get started? What are your favorites? Um, yeah, so the best way to learn AI is use it every day. Just use it all day, every day. Just get your hands dirty because it's moving so fast. Now, what I will say is that there are to learn better prompt engineering. One of the books, I've actually got it on my bookshelf behind me, and I'll rather than just show you, I'll put it in chat. But it was the best of sentences and it was the worst of sentences. It was the best of sentences. It was the worst of sentences. And this book is by June Casagrande. Um, so she's a writer and a grammar, I think she's a self-described grammar Nazi. Um, but she's an expert at using sentences. And this was one of the best books that I read in order to get better at expressing sentences, because the sentence is the smallest unit of written language. That is the smallest self-contained unit of written language. Someone added observational learning has captured my attention lately. Yeah, so observing, learning English in particular is far and away the best like thing that you can learn, because the better mastery you have over language, the better you will be able to express things that you need or want into machines. The better you'll be able to articulate language-based models. And of course, even with multimodal models, language is still going to be one of the primary ways to communicate with AI in the future. Yeah, someone says, use my GitHub for prompting. But this goes back to one of the things is like, the more you learn and the more you contribute, and the better you share and boost signals, everyone benefits. But yeah, so learning AI is just get your hands dirty. One thing that I will say is PBL, so project-based learning, is all the rage in education right now. And once you learn what PBL is, you'll be like, oh, that's my entire job. And so that is why many courses have a capstone project as part of their process. Excuse me. And so like basically set yourself a challenge that you don't know how to solve and get as close to that solution as you want. So you might say like, hey, I want to build a Star Wars droid that is powered by Chat GPT or something like that. And there's hundreds of people on YouTube and other places doing these kinds of projects. So you can follow along. You can automate away something that you do, right? And so just using this stuff day in and day out to solve problems is far and away the best way to learn. You can also create learning groups or project groups. So like, all of the ACE and Haas and stuff, you don't need to wait for me to do that. Like you can build your own group or that sort of thing. Um, my wife would kill me if I put my ethical AI system in a robot. Is that because it's an unethical AI system or because you need to keep it secret? That was a comment in the chat. So yeah, so learning AI, like it basically comes down to create something of value or figure out how to get value from it. Yep. Can you please recommend a few more books? Yeah. So, well, I mean, like I said, you got a bookshelf behind me. The, the one hard part about our marriage, she doesn't like sci-fi. Yeah, that could be difficult. Um, let's see. Well, what kinds of books? Because it really depends on what you're interested in, right? But anyways, so while you're doing that, let me check on the Q&A. All right, so we've got this one has 5 upvotes. 5 upvotes. See if there's any other ones. Got a whole bunch with 4. Oh, this one has 6. Okay, looks like you're next. All right. All right. Anand asks, actually, here, I'll bring you up, Anand, if you're willing to jump up. Anand, I think I've talked to you before on here, haven't I? All right, Anand.
Hey, can you hear me okay, Dave?
Yep, loud and clear. What's your question?
Awesome, man. First, I want to say thank you for hosting this. It's actually my first time to join one of your live events. Been following you all year, and you've made a huge change on my career. I've shifted from marketing into tech into now the deep in the AI side, much from your inspiration. So just wanted to take a moment, my friend.
Well, yeah, you're quite welcome. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, so what you got?
Yeah, so what I'm interested in is from your conversations, it sounds like you pretty much go the whole gambit between enterprise, small business, all the way down to founder and startup and solopreneur stage. And I'm interested in seeing about the pace of adoption and pace of innovation that you're seeing across different size sectors of businesses. So do you find that, do you kind of feel as you read the tea leaves that you see big tech and enterprise kind of consolidating power across this? Or do you see that the nimble pace of startups and founders, smaller communities, smaller businesses may actually have an advantage because they can move quicker?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a little bit of both. And so what I mean by that is that I have seen, and you've probably seen in the news, like I think OpenAI licensed, their enterprise, their true like corporate enterprise Chat GPT to like 160 or 260 companies, something like that. And of course, like I saw that coming because when I was still doing consulting, I had hotel chains and other places wanting me to come in and do training for onboarding. So what's interesting is that it's more about teams, actually, individual teams. So I had a friend and a Patreon supporter message me who had been trying to, or no, not a friend, local friend of mine. He's not on Patreon, but he had been pushing because he's more on the technical side, and he had been pushing for like, hey, we need to be using AI. And of course, like he was just told an unequivocal no, do not use AI, like blah blah blah. And then a couple months later, he got a notification saying, "Oh, hey, the legal team is using ChatGPT now. Isn't this great?" And he's like, "What the hell?" And I said, "Well, you have just learned the cardinal rule of corporate life, which is what legal wants, legal gets." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, that checks out." Um, and so it did pass the bar, Justin says. Yeah, and so I have Harvard trained lawyer friends who use AI all day every day now because they're like, "You know what? It recommends many of the same things that I would have recommended. It picked up on some of the things that I picked up on. It even suggested a few things that I missed. So you know what? I'm going to use this." So it really I think it depends more on the sector that you're in and more on the department in terms of adoption rate. Now, um, to your other question, like which sectors? So there are some domains or some industries that are just kind of intrinsically resistant to AI because they tend to either be more rooted in physical space, they're more brick and mortar, or it requires some high friction stuff. So like construction, for instance. But with that being said, just the same that like, smartphones are super useful, but that doesn't mean it does your job for you, right? And so because of that, you end up with like doctors want to use here's an example. All the doctors and medical students that I talk to, they want to use AI to help with notes. They don't think it's not going to replace them anytime soon, but it will help them do better with their notes. It'll help them do better with patient communication and that sort of thing. And so even so, doctors that want that, they realize there's so much regulatory red tape to get through before you can do that. In other cases, people are like, whatever, it helps, great. Um, it's not good enough. Well, so one of the cardinal studies that I read, and it's been replicated and confirmed, is basically that AI helps some of the like the bottom half in terms of performance. And the example that I give is like, hey, if you're an amateur coder, ChatGPT instantly makes you the level of an intermediate programmer. As long as you can communicate with the model, it raises your ability. For people that are not, like if you're a paralegal, it accelerates your ability as a paralegal. It obviously doesn't, well, I guess you can use it to study to pass the bar. So that's kind of a broad view of answering your question in terms of what affects adoption rates and who's adopting and why. So, yeah, any other follow-up questions? Great question, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I guess I would wonder, just advice. I'm starting a startup right now, and I'm curious, what is some of the pointers that you picked up over your time, and just rapid growth you've had in your community?
Yeah, I mean, so depending on what your startup is, number one thing and actually this comes from an interview that I had just this morning too, because I'm building my own team. Here is there's kind of three things that you look for when you're hiring someone, and that is vision, like you want alignment of vision, you want an alignment of values, and you want to hire people with the right capability. And you get all those three things in place, and then you create the right incentive structure for them, and like the rest will kind of work itself out. Because the thing is I made a lot of mistakes over the time in terms of getting involved with the wrong people. Because some people saw my fame and they wanted to like leech off of that, or like even sabotage me. I think in at least one case, someone just like really just wanted to like take me down a peg or whatever. And so in this time and space where you have a lot of people, there's also a lot of grifters out there. I cannot tell you the number of people that message me on LinkedIn trying to sell me some dumb thing that I'm like, what are you talking about? So like there's grift, there's people that are going to be envious. But when you find the right people, and again, vision, values, and capability or capacity, um, you align on those, you create the right incentives. Also, another bit of advice is talk to a lawyer sooner than you think that you need to, because they're gonna like whether you're incorporating, or if things start to go wrong or sideways or whatever, like having lawyers on your side is always makes life easier. Yeah, have one on retainer or make them a partner. That's a great advice. And I think I'm working on that as well. But yeah, so anything corporate related, lawyers make life easier. They are expensive, but failure can be even more expensive. So those are kind of my key things. Otherwise, it's like just keep learning as fast as you can. In terms of product market fit, one of the best books is going to be Crossing the Chasm, if you haven't read that. And another one is going to be Exponential Organizations. So you read both of those books, you're going to understand how unicorns are formed today. And I don't know what your sector is, but if you're building a startup and you're in the AI space, I suspect
Mhm.
those are going to be valuable to you. I'll drop those in chat in case anyone didn't hear it. So the books are Crossing the Chasm and then Exponential Organizations. And both of these books are kind of old at this point, and they refer to companies that you're like, wait, that company that's still relevant. Um, but you have to remember that some of the information that is now common knowledge, these are the books that made those ideas common knowledge. So still very relevant books. And in particular, Crossing the Chasm, I think, is more relevant because Crossing the Chasm at the time was written about driving adoption of like software companies and internet companies. And now you have to drive adoption of AI companies. So again, it all comes in cycles. So great questions.
Amazing. Thanks, David. Well, I'll be chatting with you soon. Just joined the Patreon recently, launching my own channel. So I hope I bump shoulders with you. Till next
Yeah,
time. Bye for
excellent.
now, my friend.
I'm glad you're here. Thanks for jumping in and asking a good question. All right. Let me jump back into the QA list to see who's next. I think we got a few. And yeah, so still going strong. I'll probably have enough steam left for maybe three more questions. So jump in and look and upvote the questions that you really want answered. Let's see. Oh, and also if I don't get to your question, please drop it in either if it's one that you really want answered, send it to me because some of my best videos actually come from your questions. And some of the questions that you guys ask are better as videos than as like dialogue here. So if there's a question that I don't get to, you know, drop it in Discord or whatever. Just put it in the video ideas channel. All right, it looks like the next one up is from Anonymous. Do you think prompt engineering will be obsolete when GPT-5 or AGI is reached? Is systems thinking and the power to express exactly what is needed the needed skill to navigate through the transition? So I think Ilya was one of the first ones about a year ago to say that like prompt engineering was going to go away. He also said that fine tuning is going to go away, but guess what? They brought fine tuning back. because the hubris that goes into some of those statements, saying we are going to build one model to fit them all, to rule them all, and then they realize like, actually, we have no idea how companies do what they do. Um, and so then it's like, no, they brought fine tuning back. They keep saying that they're going to get rid of prompt engineering, but they're not allowing us to create autonomous agentic AI. So we need prompt engineering because we need to steer the AI. Um, so yes, prompt engineering will go away, but it won't go away until nobody needs to work, basically. Because like Microsoft equals enterprise, yes. But basically, so here's the other thing is OpenAI. So part of OpenAI's hubris is that they think that they're the only AI company on the planet. Um, they are not, just plain and simple. Meta is out there, Google is out there. There's open source competitors, and not every model is going to work the same. And even in the far distant future, when, 50 years from now, when you're building your own C3PO, you're still probably going to need at least some models, some prompt engineering, some fine tuning, because you're going to download an open source droid brain that you want to customize for your particular version of C3PO or R2D2. So like prompt engineering is not going away, but even so, communication is, I think, the most important skill. So spoken language, written language, communicating with humans is going to be even okay. Let's say they're right. Let's say that prompt engineering goes away within a year or two. The most valuable employees that are going to be still standing in that era are going to be the ones that are good at relationships, that are good at emotions, the ones that are good at speaking with people, having meetings, those sorts of things. So like one of the principles that I learned from my interview this morning was relationships yield results. And so even if prompt engineering goes away, learning to communicate with people, that is going to be the most single durable skill. Your people skills are your most durable, most valuable skills forever. Because as long as there's humans, you need people skills. But also in my career, the more people skills that I had, the higher I went in my career. So I will say I will say like people skills first and foremost, and that translates broadly because the better people skills that you have, the better, domestic relationship you have. Like my relationship with my wife is improved, and this was one of the weird things. The better I got at relationships at home, the better I got at relationships at work. And that's why I say like communication skills and people skills, absolutely universal. Um, and the better you're able to express yourself, verbally, written, or whatever, the better you're able to communicate with the AI anyways. So like to me, it's like you hit 8 birds with one stone. So that's my soapbox with respect to like the most necessary skills now and in the future forever. So great question. All right, let me scroll through. See, that one's got 4. We got a 5. I think that one near the top is going to be the next one. We got another 5. Okay, this one's quick. Do you prefer Dave or David? I usually go by Dave. So yeah, there you go. All right. Oh, this one has 6, so I think you're next. All right. This question from Dan. Dan, let me bring you up. Dan Flat. Allow you to talk. All right. Hey, Dan, what you got?
Hey Dave, I just want to say thanks as well. Been following you for about 6 months, and I feel like you've really been my guide into the new age of AI here. So at the beginning of the chat, you added the tweet that was talking about how Sam Altman told the new Y Combinator class that they should be building as if GPT-5 is going to be here very soon. So I started building a startup a couple of years ago before all these capabilities were coming on. I've tried to integrate, the new capabilities that have come with GPT 3.5 and 4. And I wanted to see what you think that the coming advent of GPT-5 uh, will mean in terms of new capabilities for people who are building projects with their plans and strategies based on the capabilities of GPT-4 right now.
Yeah, so in terms of, so there's a few metrics that you can think of, right? So one is just context window, right? The more information it can take in, right? That's just token count. Another is speed and cost. So speed goes up, cost goes down. That's been pretty consistent over time. Of course, when GPT-4 first came out, it was very slow. Now it's faster than GPT-3 was. It's cheaper than GPT-3 was at the same time. So those things are changing. It's also getting smarter. There one conversation I had, I don't remember how he said it, but he said it the best way, which is like the task difficulty that it can do is growing pretty consistently. And Sam Altman has said this repeatedly, and I do agree with him 100% on this, which is you can pretty accurately predict over time the level of task complexity and difficulty that these new models can do. Even so, it still can surprise you what that means. Because even though you can predict, like saying, hey, based on, GPT-3 could do problems of X, Y, and Z difficulty relatively small. 4 can do better. 3.5 is right between. 4.5 or 5 or whatever comes out. We know, like, mechanistically, like, okay, it'll be able to have solve problems with an index of X or whatever. I don't know how they're measuring it right now, and how they're measuring it behind the scenes. But uh, even still, it's not clear what new capabilities that unlocks. My intuition, though, is that it's almost like an exponential funnel. So, like, GPT-2 was here, and so like its problem space was like that, and then GPT-3 is here, so it's like its problem space is 4 times bigger, and 4 is here, so it's like 16 times bigger, and 5 is probably going to be like Big Bang, right? Where it's just like, okay, we it's not going to be double the capacity, because it's kind of like if you double your IQ, you have a million more things that you're capable of doing. Like if you go from an IQ of 100 to 120, that's the difference between a police officer and your average PhD. If you go from 120 to 140, that's closer to like Albert Einstein. It's still lower than Albert Einstein, but you get my point, which is like, okay, just going up one standard deviation, the number of things you're capable of goes up exponentially. And I think that that's kind of probably the best way to think about it. And here's another reason why humans, and this is me, this is you, this is everyone, our brain just does not have the neural machinery to understand exponential change. Because like I can tell you, yes, GPT-3 was exponentially smarter than GPT-2. GPT-4 was exponentially smarter than GPT-3. Even so, I can't tell you like where GPT-5 is going to be. But like, again, depending on how you measure it, GPT-4 has an IQ of like 136. So if it's exponentially smarter, you're looking at an IQ of like 160, right? It's going to be, and oh, here's another thing, is humans are really good at gauging the intelligence of people that are similar to them or lower. But when someone is smarter than you generally either you think that they're dumber than they are because you don't understand them, or you recognize that you don't understand them because they're smarter than you, and you have no idea how to gauge how smart they actually are. And so likewise, once a machine is that much smarter than all of us, we either will think that it's dumb because it'll look like it won't make any sense, but it should be able to explain itself to us, or we're going to recognize that it's way beyond us and we're still not going to understand it. Yeah. And so so Peter just says an intelligence event horizon. It's actually called a cognitive horizon. So that's the actual like scientific term, is once something is beyond your cognitive horizon, you can't comprehend it. You are literally physically incapable of comprehending it. And so it's GPT-4 is already beyond the cognitive horizon of some people. Just look at Reddit. Um, but GPT-5 will be beyond the cognitive horizon of even more people, maybe even like me. But like when I look at GPT-4, I can generally figure out how it's thinking and what it's doing and that sort of thing. But that doesn't mean that's going to be persistent. So that's kind of the difference between like where we're at now and AGI. Most people, so maybe this is why most people like don't agree on the definition of AGI, because if they can understand it, they think, oh, that's not what I was expecting. What they're really expecting with AGI is something that they don't comprehend anymore. Maybe cognitive horizon is the best definition of AGI, but then again, once something is beyond your cognitive horizon, for all you know, it's super intelligence. Let's see. Peter, I see your question down here, but let me you should ask that in the Q&A and get people to upvote it. black boxes are already here? Because I think that's a good question, but I want to make sure we prioritize the ones that get upvoted. So great question, Dan. Thanks for asking. All right. Let me get the next one. And also, I don't remember who, but whoever said you can sort by most upvotes, that was very helpful. Okay, so next up is Will Walsh. What's your thoughts on the Rabbit R1? So I had to look that up. Let me bring you up here so you can ask your question. Allow to talk. All right, Will, what you got? You're muted, by the way. He might be away. Anyways, I can answer his question. So the Rabbit R1 is here. Let me just share my screen real quick because I had to bring it up because I had seen this in it, but I didn't connect the dots. But yeah, so this is basically like, share this real quick. So it's like a little pocket assistant. It basically looks like the first, tricorder V1 to me. But this is the kind of thing that you should expect to see, which is like, this is the way of the future, right? This is going to be the way that things go, where you've got like, you're going to eventually have like AI built into your watch, everything. And so this is part of some of the changes that you see, particularly in startups, which is startups that are AI first. So the first out of the gate, they're saying, hey, we're going to build a new product or a new service around AI, around this new technology. It's kind of the same as like, okay, imagine you're back when, the internal combustion engine was invented. And rather than just trying to say, okay, well, what do we use rotary motion for right now? We use it for grinding wheat, right? And so then you replace a windmill with an internal combustion engine. But then along comes Henry Ford, who says, what else can I use this portable power for? And he builds an automobile, right? And so it's like, when you say, okay, what is this new engine give us the capability of doing, and building an entirely new product around that. So that's kind of my read on this. All this is entirely should be expected. I'm really looking forward to, because like the Rabbit is going to be eventually evolve into a tricorder, which is going to be like, a smartphone on steroids, that it's like, hey, tell me what's wrong with my health. Tell me what's wrong with my house. Like, diagnose this car. Like, that's coming down the pipeline. Great question. Whoops. Remove that. All right, go back to the Q&A. I think I've got about one or two more questions. So answer live, done. All right, so we've got I don't know if I'm going to pronounce your name right. Legwabe? Given that most people are lazy, if intelligence becomes abundant because of AGI, will we see a decrease in human intelligence and critical thinking? Let me bring you up, because that's a great question. Oh, looks like he might have left. Oh, that's sad. Okay, well, it looks like who asked this question has left. So let me bring his question back up. But yeah, so the question, and this kind of thing comes up pretty often. But the idea is that, okay, if you build a machine that can offload your cognition, does that take away something from us? And generally speaking, I say the answer is no. Because going back to even Socrates, world famous Socrates, famous thinker, he thought that books were a bad idea because he thought that took something away from your cognition. He thought that it was better to figure out things for yourself, right? Yeah, it's like books will kill our memory. But in fact, these technologies actually increase your cognitive capability. And here's one of the reasons that I think AI is going to have a net increase on our cognitive capability. And if you watch the AGI, the post AGI education video that I did, basically AI and AGI is going to create much better neurocognitive development for all humans. One of the things that comes up in my interviews is use AI to learn. And because you have a personal tutor who's an expert on pretty much any topic, in your pocket at all time. If you're not using this to learn, you're selling yourself short. Now, in terms of laziness, what I will say is that is a pathologizing version of that economizing behavior that I talked about. If you acknowledge and accept that humans are all economizers, if you acknowledge and say, hey, we are just naturally going to economize our resources, which includes our time, our mental energy, our attention, then it's not pathological, but what it does mean is that you'll have a cognitive surplus that you can allocate to something else. And so what are you going to allocate it to? You might allocate it to cleaning up your environment, having a better time with your family. There's all kinds of stuff, because you will naturally like gravitate. Like if you're bored, that's a signal that you're misusing your brain's energy. That's one of the best definitions of boredom that I've ever heard, is that, like, and let me say it again because I can say it better, is that boredom is your brain's way of telling you that you are misallocating its abilities. And so you'll get bored and then you will use your brain for something else. Now, the one problem with technology, particularly like video games and doom scrolling and stuff, is that it keeps you just stimulated enough, but you're still actually bored. So, like, throw your phone out the window. I was telling my wife, we were on a walk earlier, I was like, one day in the future, I'm just going to throw my phone in the river and I'll be like, this is my do not disturb of the future. But yeah, less screen time is going to be a thing, particularly as we spend more time in the real world with real people. Like this, so this is kind of how my life is going, because I'm trying to practice what I preach. And that is, like, I work really hard. I usually work 4 or 5 more hours straight every morning, and then I get off the screens. And actually, my vision got better because I spend less time in front of screens overall. So great question. And I hope you are here to hear that. But if not, you'll get on the recording. Let's see. All right, we've got one more question with 5 upvotes, and wow, there's a lot of comments. So I think this will be the last question of the day because I'm running out of steam. But yeah, so how can we prepare our AI systems and cybersecurity measures for the advent of quantum computing to avoid potential threats? Defense in depth model is the primary thing, and MFA. So defense in depth, if you're not familiar with this, I've talked about it before. But it's a cybersecurity model that the Department of Defense came up with, and it's modeled on the defense in depth model. Here, I'll just post a link to this image. It's based on actual, like, perimeter security that like military bases use. So defense in depth is the first thing. This is the most comprehensive cybersecurity defensive posture you can. Best practices. Another thing, I know that a lot of people like poo-poo best practices, but like back in my corporate days, I was Mr. Best Practices, and you'd be surprised, like 90+% of emergencies and disasters are avoided by implementing best practices. And then finally, MFA, multi-factor authentication, because we do have an authentication scheme. This is basically based on zero trust mentalities. Documentation, the black hole, yeah. So, but yeah, defense in depth, best practices, MFA, and zero trust mentality. You incorporate all those. Oh wait, I was just messaging the wrong people. I apologize. Hang on. You guys probably weren't getting any of my chats. Here, let me do those again. Let's see. There we go. And then zero trust. Okay, so these ideas are in chat now. But yeah, you follow these DID, best practices, MFA, zero trust. You do all that, you're going to be fine. And just stay up to date, because one thing about best practices is you do your patch cycles, you harden your environment, you do penetration testing, and you'll be fine in terms of security. Now, again, like if quantum computing breaches, RSA, not RSA, AES 256, then like we're all in trouble and we're all going to be in the same boat together. But having been at the front lines where you get like day zero exploits, what I will say is that, like, all the big tech companies, the CIA, the NSA, they are really good about mitigating zero-day exploits today. Like it was not the kind of thing that we would ever panic about. It's like, oh hey, by the time we get the security bulletin, here's the mitigation. And that's not saying that they're all easy, because some of them can be a little bit painful. But again, more often than not, because I would get a bulletin from the security department, and they wanted to know, like, are we vulnerable? What have you done to mitigate this? And I'm like, oh, well, because we have best practices, this is already at least partially mitigated. Great question around cybersecurity and that sort of thing. But yeah, great question, Justin. I will call that a day. Simon says, I'm a cybersecurity professional and I approve this message. There are more formal frameworks than those. DID and MFA are great starts. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there, but like pretty much every software platform, every hardware platform, they publish their own best practices guidelines. They publish their own hardening guidelines. And then of course there's consultants out there. You can hire penetration testers. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. But yeah, thanks everyone for jumping in. This was really great. If you didn't get to see the whole thing, and we've got more than 50 people still on, I'll post the recording probably later this weekend. And yeah, let's see. Justin says I just got thrown into trying to learn as much as possible. Yeah, no, and ask in the Discord. Actually, let me make a couple notes. So we need a small business Discord channel, and I'll do a cybersecurity Discord channel as well, because those are really good questions. All right. Well, thanks everyone for jumping in. Thanks for your support. Stay tuned. And yeah, keep up the good work, and we will have a great 2024. Cheers.